All right, KMR hanging out at Mazda Tricks. We got this cool 13B FD3S RX7 motor. Came through the shop, a little bit of a street port, fresh OEM side seals, corner seals, springs, bearings, narrowed up the rotors a little bit, and got some E&J apex seals going in there. I figured I'd talk a little bit about why this motor's coming through, why the customer chose that combination of components, and we could talk a little brap, because this is a nice little brapper. You know, I think when it comes to the RX-7s, most people think of the FD3S, you know, very sleek, very powerful. I love the FC, I love the first gen, and obviously the earlier rotaries coming in, the R100s, RX2s, 3s, 4s, Cosmos, all awesome, but the FD3S is pretty much the block that everybody is looking for. Either that or the Cosmo blocks, and a lot of that comes down to the castings. Mazda, when they made the late model castings that ran boost, you got larger castings in this oil gallery area, and that's where a lot of the block fatigue happens as these rotor housings get pushed out. This particular oil gallery area and the back, where you can see it's actually got some extra casting material here and a larger boss. These are the areas that you would see breakage on the earlier motors. So Mazda made the FD3S block stronger than the rest of the blocks from the factory. Therefore, when people get these motors, it's very normal that we see more boost thrown at them, even if they're not studded or dowel pinned. And, you know, a lot of the times through the years, the ease of making horsepower with these particular motors and the FD3S, I think, prolonged a little bit of the bad reputation. One of the reasons we went with the E&J seals on this build is the customer's running a Power FC, and a Power FC computer does not have a lot of inherent protection built in, unlike some of today's standalone computers, where you can really get a lot of protection via programming, and you're able to tune in things that would stop the car from detonating if it sees hot intake air or maybe low fuel pressure, or the O2 starts to read a little bit off. The Power FC can't do that, so the motors blow up. And that's one of the reasons this motor came through, is it had another blow up. Now, the customer doesn't really want to change the wiring. They're very happy with the car setup. They know it wasn't the motor's fault. We know it wasn't the motor's fault. They're going to continue to work on their tuning and the reliability of their own programming and setup. Instead of changing the setup, we decided to build in a little bit of protection inside the motor. And instead of running the OEM apex seals, which would have been a good choice for this build, since the car, still twin turbo, very stock, just driven hard, good track car, good fun car, but not excessively modified, could have still ran stock seals. But because there has been detonation problems in the past, and it is a nice street ported motor, probably around stock RPM, we figured it was getting into the range where using an E&J 2mm two-piece seal was a good aftermarket upgrade, because if detonation or some type of failure occurred, not necessarily the motor itself, but some external function, fuel delivery, spark timing, octane, fuel pressure, air temperature, any of that can cause knock. That could cause the apex seal to see detonation, which would shatter it. And in the OEM seals, if you shattered an apex seal, that would take out your rotor housing, your turbo, all kinds of stuff. The E&J seals will bend, which leaves them either in a condition that the motor can continue running, maybe slightly impaired, but still usable, or they will just bend and stick a little bit so the motor runs, you know, low on compression in one bank, but does not suffer failure to other components. Rotor housings, rotors, side plates, turbos are all saved because there isn't shrapnel or particulate pieces from the apex seal going through the motor. So in this case, even though it was a very stock or we'll just say a lightly modified car, instead of building in protection into the chassis, which we aren't able to do because we're not in charge of that, we were able to give some options which built protection into the motor. We did see a little bit of tip scuffing, so we did narrow up the rotors slightly, made sure everything was matched and balanced. It is a factory rotating assembly, polished up all the bearings, checked all the tolerances on the side plates, and it does have an exidy flywheel because that's always a good thing. So this is just a really good example of a very light performance build for an RX-7 FD3S car. You don't have to get too wild. Not everything has to be a semi-peripheral port, bridge port, brap monster making 600 or 700 horsepower. I mean, we all want that. It's fantastic. It's fun. But you can have a lot of fun right around 300 horsepower. And it doesn't break the bank as bad. It can be very reliable and is a pretty simple build by comparison to some of the builds we see go through here. So shout out to Mazda Tricks, their build, their parts. And then obviously the E&J seals, and then KMR, we're talking about it. We got an opportunity to check it out because we're always hanging out over here. So thank you everybody for watching, seeing what's going on the channel. I did the porting, I did some of the assembly. So very cool little project. And we've got more projects that we're going to be talking about and that we've been working on and that we have going coming up soon. But I couldn't turn down the opportunity to talk about this really nice basic brapper of an RX-7 motor. So that's it. That's a brap. I'm out of here. I got work to do.